Hello everyone. So I asked a few weeks ago on Twitter if anyone would be interested in seeing our 40k armies, and you seem to be interested, so here's my Orc Warband. So I'm not going to show you every single model because, well, we'll be here for decades if I do that, but I will show you the ones that I kind of think are more interesting. So here's my HQ units. I won't show you the Assault and Blackreach boss because who honestly gives a toss about that, but I have got 3 big mechs that are fairly heavily customized. Okay, my first big mech is named Gob Wrench because I am a grown-up and I name my toys. It's actually the only one that's got a name, so I guess it's not that bad. A lot of his extra bits are made mostly of sprue and plasticard, which is a reoccurring theme you'll see in these models. Actually, I'll put up a work in progress so you can kind of see what they look like before painting whenever I've got a picture of them. He's based vaguely on a tech marine. Sort of my internal logic for him was that he saw a tech marine and thought it was cool and so decided to imitate that, which is why he's got 2 big extra claws, and his custom force field thing on the back you can actually remove because it's magnetized and replace it with some guns so he looks even more like a tech marine. Although I've never actually used his guns in a game ever, so I guess that was a massive waste of time. But oh well. Here is my second mech. I made him basically because after playing with Gob Wrench for a long time, I realised all the war gear I wish I'd given him and modelled on him, and then just made that one instead. So yeah, he's got a custom force field and a burner. He's the one I actually use most because he's kind of cool, although admittedly I've not played much since 5th edition, so he's probably shit now. This guy is my third mech, and he's probably my favourite model that I've ever made because I didn't completely fuck up the paint job, and he was basically made because I really wanted to make a shock attack gun mech and I had barely any parts left. So I sort of took that as a challenge and decided to make a cyborg one, so he's fairly heavily scratch built, like his legs were pretty much nothing. That's just made out of sprue, plasticard, and bits of guitar string. That's about it. So yeah, he's kind of my favourite one, although I don't get to use him super often because I don't really use shock attack guns very often. But the arm actually does come off, which is fun, not for any real purpose, other than you can stick it on upside down and it looks stupid. So yeah, there's that. I suppose it would be sensible to show you some of my Orc boys since they make up most of the actual model count, but most of them aren't very interesting. Quite a lot of them are painted very, very poorly because they were some of the first models that I painted while getting back into 40k. Some of the later ones I've got are a little bit better painted because I started, getting a bit better at it, but for the most part they're kind of uninteresting. Apart from this one, who has an Angry Marine shoulder pad on him, because the internet. But who cares about the boys when you've got the grots? Yeah, I really, really like the grot models. I'm not entirely sure why, which is why I did spend an ungodly amount of time on a couple of them. Like this one I don't know why, I just spent ages and ages and ages on him, and he's depressingly one of the best painted things in my army. Despite what, I think they're like 3 points for a grot, so it's fucking ridiculous. Then there's this little cyber grot that is technically an avatar of me, because ages ago I used to be on the Daka forum, and I joined a mob of cyber grots as like a weird, not a roleplay thing, but you were supposed to make something to be like an avatar of you. So I ended up making this. He's Wibbs the Cyber Grot, and yeah, I again spent an ungodly amount of time on a 3-point model. But I quite like him. He's kind of fun. The only other grot I've got of particular mention is that I have got this super old, like, 2nd edition one that I repaired and then decided to try and paint to theme with my army so no one would notice that I've got an ancient fucking Gretchen in my army. Because I don't know, I just kind of like having these really old models and having people not instantly notice that they are really old. However, I think now is about time that I let the entire internet see my knobs. So my regular knob squad is not particularly interesting. They're mostly just out the box and just diversified to all hell because, as I said, they were made for 5th edition where that was just broken. But my way more interesting knobs are my mega knobs, which I decided to make from a bunch of old, like 3rd edition Terminators, or maybe the 2nd edition Terminators. I can't remember where they're from. I got them so long ago, I don't remember anymore. But yeah, so I broke those down and made 3 mega knobs out of them. They're possibly a little short for mega knobs, but no one's ever complained so far, so I guess that counts. Yeah, these models were the ones where I realised that I should really start upping my game with bases a little bit, because they are literally the most boring bases that have ever been conceived. I'm sorry you all have to see this close. Just look at the models, they're far more interesting. But yeah, I only have 3 of these guys because I like to put them in a truck and then just fire them at the enemy and see what happens. They tend to fuck things up fairly efficiently, so, you know, they're a relatively cheap way of screwing with your opponent. And now on to my vehicles, which you will notice are all painted red because, as we all know, red ones go faster. But yeah, here is the first of a trio of trucks that I have. You might notice they're the old truck model, mostly because I already had one of them, so when I came to add more to the army, I just thought it'd be easier to just buy more of them, mostly because they're dirt cheap on eBay, and the actual modern truck models cost an absolute goddamn fortune. This one's like a super heavily armoured version of it, with a really awful orky version of the Crux Terminatus on the back of it, because this is the dedicated transport for those mega knobs you saw earlier. There's 2 more trucks which were both done in a very kind of similar manner, although you can actually see the orc inside them. This one has apparently killed an ultramarine, which I think we can all be grateful about. This one was actually the one that I first converted, which is why it's probably the most rough looking one, at least in terms of paint job and stuff. But it did kind of provide a model for what I did with the other 2, so I can't really feel too badly about it. Although the paint seems to be coming off the wheels a bit, which is an issue that I should probably address at some point, but not today. Now move on to my looted wagons, which, despite not always being the best things to have in your army, I can't help but adore them, mostly for the don't press dat rule. If that's even still in it, I don't know. I never actually got around to reading the new Orc Codex, so maybe that's not in it anymore, and looted wagons are just terrible. That would be sad. But anyway, this one's made out of a rhino, you can probably tell that. One of the old rhinos before, you know, they became a lot more weird and angular and looking like a real tank. My other 2 are both looted land speeders, which are the models that people tend to take the most interest in when they've ever walked past the gaming table. They'll see these things and go, "Are those looted land speeders?" And I go, "Yes," and they go, "Cool," and then walk off, and then I get to feel cool for like 3 seconds. They're basically just boom wagons, you know, just carry a giant cannon on them, which is mostly just there to screw with any Space Marine players. And this one has a wheel on it, you know, just in case a wing falls off. Yeah. The second one I made was a little bit more elaborate, like it actually has a turning turret on it, which is magnetized along with the gun, so you can take those off if you really want to. And it also makes it really handy when a weapon gets blown off, because you can just take the damn thing off. Although I did realise after building the entire thing how ludicrously small the housing for that gun is, and it looks kind of ridiculous. But it is an orc vehicle, so yeah. And here we have my mostly scratch-built Orc Buggies, and which of course you have to mostly scratch-build because the actual ones you can buy from Games Workshop haven't been remade since Gorka Morka, so they look totally awful next to modern orc models. So I thought I'd have a stab at just making my own. They are mostly a cavalry base that I just built sprue and plasticard on top of until it looked vaguely buggy shaped, with some Space Marine bike engines on the back, just to add consistency across the 3 of them. A couple of them also have scale electric wheels on, so that's fairly fun. I also have a little grot-powered war track, which is made from the rear end of a defiler and the body of a killer can. But yeah, it's piloted by a grot. I did originally want to have just a regular war buggy piloted by a grot, but then there was something in my brain that wouldn't let me have the driver of a vehicle have a higher ballistic skill than the model actually has, because that just bothers me, so I thought I'd just put him in something with a flamer so that the ballistic skill doesn't really matter. And here we have the only vehicle in my army that isn't red. A Death Dread, which you can probably tell is made mostly of a defiler. It did used to be a real defiler one day until I did horrible, horrible things to it and reassembled it as the monstrosity you see before you. I don't think I've ever actually personally used this in a game, which is kind of bad considering how much time and energy I spent on it. I think someone else who I let borrow my army once used it once. So that's an efficient use of my time. But I do really like the model, and he has a dead blood angel on his base. Because, I don't know, I guess I was just feeling really bitter towards the blood angels that day. I think this might have been after the first time I fought a flying dreadnought, and I was like, I need to get revenge for that. There's other models in there like the looters and big guns and the death copters and things, but they're not particularly interesting, so I won't waste any more of your time with those. But yeah, that's my army. I've not played with it for quite a while, so it's probably a completely shitty build to run anymore, but it used to do okay back in 5th. But yeah, so Thank you for watching, and remember, the red ones do indeed go faster.
So I sat up and I realized that every little lobster didn't have to die, and the bubbling back left to